Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I am your host, Sunil Lala. Joining us this evening is Senator the Honorable Allyson West, the Minister of Public Administration. Good evening, Minister, and welcome back to the show.
Hello, Sunil. Thank you very much.
So we haven't heard much about the Ministry of Public Administration in the last few years. I just want to ask, tell us about the role of the Minister of Public Administration and by extension, the Ministry.
Public admin is a bit of a well-kept secret. I'm trying to change that. We are essentially responsible for how the public service operates, for modernizing and improving the service to the public. That, in a nutshell, is what we do. In doing so, we locate and find property for ministries and agencies to operate out of. We train public servants. We advise the government on the kinds of human resource structures we should have to allow the various agencies to perform their duties and that kind of thing.
Now, the Ministry is also responsible for the implementation of ICT projects. How has this been progressing?
Well, yes and no, because when we started in 2020, we were the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation. Though that was split into two a year later, so we are now just public admin and there's a separate ministry dealing with digital transformation. So the work in respect of ICT is kind of split between us. So we are focusing on things like process reengineering to make the whole process of getting services out of the public service simpler and easier for the public to deal with, while the Ministry of Digital Transformation focuses on things like the EID and the systems that we use to ensure interoperability and those kinds of things.
Now, you said the Ministry trains public servants, and I was unaware that there was actually a public service academy within the Ministry. Is this being fully utilized to train public servants?
It is fully utilized in the current configuration, but it is not currently configured in a way that allows for optimization of training of the public service. So we have been trying to find a consultant to help us restructure the academy as well as the curriculum. In the meantime, because that's taking longer than we had hoped, we are now in discussions with the University of the West Indies to launch a wider, more impactful training session program starting in January of 2024. So we'll use that as our intermediate solution while we build out the academy into something that is more fit for purpose.
How long do you envision this public service academy, the revitalization, if you want to call it that, how long do you think this is going to take?
I'm hoping to do that within calendar 2024. Because we don't have a lot of time to get things done, so I'm trying to really push my projects to ensure that we can complete them and implement them properly so that there is no shifting of focus when I'm no longer there.
As it stands now, is there any system in place to actually assess public servants?
There is, in theory. In my view, it is not as impactful as it should be because it is not properly monitored or implemented. So that I have looked at reports on various public servants who have come before me for renewal of their contracts, for example. And every time I see a reference to their performance, it says their performance is satisfactory. So it cannot be that everybody in the public service is performing satisfactorily. Some people are excellent, some people are good, some people are fair, some people are poor, but you don't see that reflected in the assessment. So obviously, the assessments are not being properly handled to actually identify the differences in performance so that we can target and treat with those differences. So I am trying now, with the assistance of the Strategic Human Resource Council, to revamp the assessment system to make it more impactful. Because in my view, an assessment of staff should start with the staff's assessment of him or herself. What have I done? How do I think I perform? What are my areas of weakness? What are my plans for the future? What kind of training do I need to get there? The supervisor then steps in and puts his or her spin on that. And we come up not only with a proper report of how the public servant performed, but also what is needed to improve his or her performance going forward. And then hopefully at some point we can introduce a system of reward or sanction for good or bad performance.
For those who may be unaware, could you tell us about the different categories of public servants, where they fall in?
There's a long list. So what I would say is that currently we are undergoing a job evaluation exercise that is led by the personnel department to look at all the jobs in the public service. There are about 164 different categories of jobs in the public service, if I remember correctly. They are reassessing all of those jobs to determine whether the job descriptions are proper, whether we still need some of them, because do we need to talk stenographers, for example, in 2024? Whether we need to redesign some of the jobs, merge some of them, to come up with a new structure for the human resource portfolio in the public service. And after that, we can more adequately deal with how we remunerate people, how we place people, those kinds of things. So that's where we are in terms of the structure and the number of different jobs that we have.
There's a perception that, you know, public servants, for want of a better word, don't work. How do you respond to people who say this?
We have a mixed bag. There are public servants who don't work, but there are public servants who work really hard. So that what we need to do is ensure that first the public servants who the people meet are the right types of public servants. So training in terms of customer service and how you treat with people and how you get to the point where you realize that you are there to serve the public. So it's not about the rules, it's about how best can you accommodate any reasonable request that's made of you. So the people who are at the forefront of the ministry have to be the right category of people. We also need to ensure that in each area we don't have square pegs and round holes, and the training of the public servants will be important in that.
For years we've been hearing about attempts to bring about greater efficiency in the public service. How are you going about achieving this, and can you say if there's been any improvements?
There have been pockets of improvements. You can see it, for example, in the licensing authority, where people have been able to make online appointments and they go to the licensing authority and they get through within minutes rather than hours, as it used to happen in the past. That's just one of many examples. So there have been pockets, but there are still areas where improvement is needed. Yes, there have been several attempts over the years to improve, and we have seen temporary improvements, so it comes and goes. So what we are seeking to do is underlay the attempt at improvement with the digitalization thrust. Because as we digitalize records and share records across the public service, it makes serving the public so much easier. Because rather than having, for example, to leave the Registrar General's office to go to the ID office to get a copy of the ID, the Registrar General could check online and verify that the person who is in front of them is the person who he or she says he is by checking online, linking up with the other agency. So those are the kinds of things we're trying to put in place to ensure that public service reform is actually real and long-lasting on this occasion. So that is why we have to work closely with the Ministry of Digital Transformation so that we can move together simultaneously and arrive at a reasonable solution to public service performance.
As we're talking about digital transformation, in terms of the ministry, have you been able to digitize your records or go into that digital sphere?
We have started. We have completed our property and real estate services division digitalization, so that's now fully online. people can, ministries and agencies can apply for properties online. They just tell us what their specs are, that kind of thing, what they're looking for, so we can start searching. Landlords and real estate agents can register properties that they have available for rent and sale online. The agencies who we have to reach out to get reports on these properties before we make recommendations to Cabinet, they would include the city engineer, the OSH Authority, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Services, and the Commission of Valuations. They can all interact with the system online, secure their request, and download their reports for us. So everything is online now with respect to property. We are currently working on our HR records and the records for what we call our Public Management Consulting Division, which is the entity that advises government on the organizational structures. So during the course of 2024, the public administration should be fully digitalized. And what we are moving to now is digitalization, or helping all other ministries and agencies digitalize their HR records in particular. And the reason for that is that we are now responsible for the rollout of the electronic human resource management system that we have identified for acquisition. So that in order to properly roll it out, we need to ensure the records are digitalized and accurate. So we are assuming that responsibility. We have just located a venue to do that, and we're going to be inviting all the ministries to bring their records to us so that we can ensure that those records are digitalized. Because while the ministries are all embarked in their own digitalization projects, understandably, their focus is on the operational side of their business. HR is a back office kind of function, so they are not focused on that. So we are going to assume that responsibility.
At a recent press conference, I believe it was in September, October, you would have indicated that a work from home policy, you were about to award that to a successful bidder. I believe I heard it was the UWI St. Augustine campus or the Arthur Lockjack School. Can you confirm?
It was the Arthur Lockjack School of Business that had come out on top of that particular RFP. Unfortunately, during the course of negotiations, issues arose, so we have now, we're now about to move on to the second successful bidder. We are hoping to close off those negotiations by the end of this calendar, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, so that that entity can start their work beginning of January, because it's something that people are clamoring for. So we want the report completed as soon as possible so that Cabinet can consider it. Now, I would just like to reiterate once again, as I've said several times, but nobody hears this part, this policy is something we're putting together with a recommendation to the Cabinet. We have to come up with something that's workable before we can ask the Cabinet to introduce it. So the most important thing is ensuring that in introducing a work from home program, we do not compromise the productivity in the public service. We cannot negatively impact the provision of services to the citizens. So we are hoping that the consultant will come up with a formula that allows us to achieve both goals, and then we can bring it before the Cabinet.
So in terms of the work from home policy, have they been given a timeline? Because I know when you had the press conference in September, October, you would have said around that time you would have had the work from home policy in place. Is that still the case?
We are still in negotiation with the consultant, but we are hoping that they can turn it around within 6 months. So yes, I'm still hoping for 2024 fiscal to be able to go to Cabinet with a recommendation.
How is the work from home policy going to be successful if the current issues in the public sector are not addressed?
Well, we are seeking to address that as we develop the work from home policy. So as you should be aware, many of the ministries have gone online with a lot of their services, so that face-to-face interaction is becoming less required now, and that is one of the pluses for the work from home policy. We're pushing ahead with the digitalization of records, that's another key factor. so that it may not, depending on how far we get with those two programs, it may not be possible to do a full rollout right away, but we certainly can start introducing services that can be done remotely. And what we are doing as part of the work, as part of planning for work from home, is as we build out administrative centers, we are including in those centers what we call work pods, that people who live in or around the area but work far away can choose to work from or apply for space in that spot on a particular day so that they can work remotely rather than work from home. So we actually are calling it the remote work policy rather than the work from home policy to give us some flexibility in how we can implement it.
That's interesting. How is this going to work? Is a center going to be built for these work pods and so on?
We are building out admin centers to operate as a one-stop shop for government services so that all the central agencies that need to be located in those areas can operate out of that one center. So if you have to do government business, you can go to one location and get your services from the various agencies. So as we build those centers out, we are including in there a space where we will have cubicles or workstations that we will hotel out to individuals who don't work in those locations but can work from those locations.
Many of the community centers that's being opened have these ICT centers as well. Any incorporation into this?
That has crossed my mind, so I will include that as an option for consideration, but we will have to see how that meshes with the ICT program and the program of the community center. So at the moment, our focus is on building out the admin centers to accommodate that.
Have you done any analysis in terms of some of these services that's being offered? Have you seen less people coming into the offices?
We haven't done that analysis. It may be that the ministries themselves have done it, and as we look into the work from home policy, that's one of the things that we expect the consultants to advise us on.
And hopefully we can see some less traffic into Port of Spain.
That is one of the real pluses that I'm hoping to achieve by the remote work policy. Because if we can save our population the struggle of waking up in Point Fortin at 3:30 to come to work in Port of Spain for 8 o'clock and getting back home at 7, 8 o'clock, and reduce significantly the traffic on the road, I think we would be so far ahead of the game.
A dress code policy was recently approved by the cabinet. Can you share a little bit about this?
Sure. As you probably are aware, members of the public have been complaining for ages about what they call the archaic dress code policy that you have. You can't go into a government office with your arms exposed, or in shorts or in slippers, that kind of thing. So we gave it some thought and did some investigation to determine what was a reasonable approach to a dress code policy, because we want to allow people as far as possible to get service as and when they need it, but not be indecent at the same time. What we will be doing in the next couple of weeks is advertising the policy, giving people practical examples of what is pro and what is acceptable and what is not, and hoping to launch it in January.
So this would have been approved by cabinet a couple of weeks ago. In terms of the implementation, you said it's January. How soon can we see these public education programs going out to the public?
Well, I've been talking to my councilpeople even before we took the policy to cabinet, so I'm hoping that in the second half of December we will start seeing some the campaign started and broadly advertised, so that by the beginning of January people are aware of what the new rules are and we can implement it right away.
Do you foresee any challenges to possibly train staff for these new rules to let people in?
Yes, because those people who are there, those people who are the first ones to greet the public, tend to be like security guards and that kind of thing, and they are used to a particular approach. The training of those staff to accommodate the new approach is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we're going to start that right away, and we're going to ask each ministry to ensure that they have a more senior officer available in case there are issues that need to be addressed quickly.
You recently held a press conference surrounding some issues about the rental of a building on Park Street in Port of Spain, which was to be held for the DPP's office, the Director of Public Prosecutions. How do you respond to those who continue to allege corruption in the rental of these buildings?
Well, we have explained the situation ad nauseum. We have said to the public that the rental of this building came to the Ministry of Public Admin as an issue to be addressed since 2014. So it has crossed 2 administrations. So unless they're claiming that both administrations are in cahoots with the landlord, I don't see how they can continue to allege corruption. We have explained to them that we got a devaluation from the Commissioner of Valuations. We negotiated with the landlord. What we're paying the landlord was significant. What we were paying the landlord, because the lease was terminated, was significantly less than the valuation. So in those circumstances, I don't know what else to say to persuade the people who continue to doubt us that this transaction was completely above board, a reasonable approach taken by the government, and we move on.
You said that contract was terminated. So then have you had conversations with the Director of Public Prosecutions to where they want to be relocated, or if they want to be relocated?
Yes, so we are trying to accommodate the DPP and his needs, as well as those of the entire justice system, so that we can expedite the execution of justice for the more effective and efficient rollout of those things. So you will remember that we have passed several bits of legislation to improve the justice system, one of them being the abolition of preliminary inquiries, which was just proclaimed, and we are eager to get that started. An integral part of getting that done properly is ensuring that the DPP can function as best as he can. So we have identified a building, and we are going to do a site visit on that shortly. We're hoping that it will be suitable and that we can move forward quickly to get the DPP settled in new accommodation.
What's one of the biggest challenges at your ministry?
It's one of the biggest challenges of my ministry, and I think throughout the public service, is the efficient implementation of projects. So much of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago relies on government expenditure in terms of construction projects, building roads, all these kinds of things. If the government does not efficiently perform, it has a significant impact on the economy. What I have been talking to my public consulting management unit about is promoting the introduction of project management units in all ministries. Because what happens, they exist in some ministries, but what happens in the others is that the people who are there doing their day-to-day job, seeing about HR, seeing about paying bills, those kinds of things, those people are pulled in to try to run major billion-dollar and million-dollar projects. And it's difficult for them to do both. So we really need units, in my view, in each of the ministries to focus on the major projects while everybody else continues with their day job. So that's another initiative that I'm trying to promote.
On the flip side, tell us about some of the successes at the Ministry of Public Administration.
I think that there is a focus in the ministries now in getting things more efficiently done. The digitalization program, I think, has given us quite a push in that direction, and people are seeing the real possibility of change with the proper introduction of those digitalization programs in their ministries. So you're seeing the focus, and as I said, you are seeing some successes, and ministries who are a little behind the game are being encouraged to come up to the standard of everybody else, so that you will see a transformation of the public service in the not too distant future.
Any update on the back pay to public servants?
We are pushing to get it done. The Ministry of Education, as the public has been told, has been having some challenges with the managing the process, because they have a lot of teachers to pay, so that the public service is getting together to work with them to try to assist. We have each of the ministries has volunteered resources, human resources, to that ministry, And my ministry, which is responsible for the operation of the electronic payroll system, is working closely with them to ensure that they get it done. So fingers crossed, we will pay public servants their back pay before Christmas.
What can we expect in 2024 from the Ministry of Public Administration?
So in 2024, we have a lot of projects that are on the table, and I'm hoping a lot of them will come to fruition. We do have the work from home that we're hoping to finish in 2024, the introduction of the UE training program as part of the rollout of the Across the Service More Effective training program for public servants to target more than the 1,500 odd people that we train currently. We have an RFP out for the development of the Point 14 admin complex, and because there's already a building constructed on the site and it's just to refurbish and fix the building, we're hoping to actually open that building to the public with a full suite of services during 2024. We are hoping to turn the sod for the construction of our REMA admin complex. We have identified the site. There's some issue around the property that we are trying to sort out, but hopefully in the not too distant future we will be able to go out with an RFP on that and turn this on in 2024. The electronic HRM system, we are hoping to at least start the rollout of all of the modules for better management of the human resources in the public service, because you may recall that one of the huge HR challenges that we have is that it takes us 4 to 5 years to pay people their pension in the public service. Completely unacceptable. The Ministry of Finance, a year or two ago, to provide some relief to public servants, came to the Parliament and said, and sought permission, sought the approval of legislation to allow us to pay public servants at least the minimum pension that would be due to the lowest level public servants, so at least they get something. But that is $3,500. So a help, but not a fantastic approach for somebody who left the public service earning, say, $30,000 a month. How can they live on $3,500, right? So that what we really have to do is tidy up that pension system and introduce a more effective computation and payment of pensions. And we are seeking to have the EHRM system do that, among other things. It's going to be looking at the assessments, allowing us, the same staff assessments that we discussed earlier, allowing us to monitor those and implement those more efficiently, and just generally better manage the 40 to 60,000 people that make up the public service, civil service.
You said a lot of people wait 4 to 5 years to get their pensions and so on.
Exactly.
Do you have a goal in mind as when they retire, how soon they can get these pensions and so on?
When the new system is introduced, I am hoping within a month or two. Because once the records are on hand, and with digitalization of the process, the records will be on hand. We are also, this is not yet an issue I've raised with the Cabinet or the Minister of Finance, we are also looking at the possibility of simplifying how pensions are computed in the public service, so that we no longer will require every single record for every year of service like we've done, like we do currently. In the private sector, the computation of pensions is much simpler. And I'm hoping that we can get the Cabinet to approve the introduction of a simpler system of computation, in which case the lengthy wait will go away. And somebody will be able to retire today and within a month or two be able to get his proper pension.
Your final thoughts?
The work in the Ministry of Public Admin, although it is not very well publicized and very well acknowledged, is interesting and has the potential to be impactful on how the public service operates. And how the public service operates is such a huge reflection on how Trinidad and Tobago operates. So I am looking forward, with the help of the team, to properly implement the projects that we have on hand, plus a couple of others that are not yet before us, so that by the end of my term, we could see a reformed public service.
Minister, you do have the privilege of being our last guest on the show for 2023. I want to thank you for coming to join us to speak on these various issues, and I hope you listen out for our Delving Deeper recap on Sunday, January 7th. I'm sure you're going to be featured in that as well. But thanks so much for coming out and joining us here.
Thank you very much, Sunil. I would like to wish you, your family, the viewing public and their families all the best for 2024 and a very happy Christmas.
Thank you very much, Minister. And that's our show. On behalf of the entire team, have a Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year. Have a great night.